Welcome all to AK Bio Lecture series. In this video, we are going to discuss about how the filtering of variable sperm inside the female reproductive tract in mammals takes place and how the sperm capacitation process takes place inside the female genital tract in the case of mammals. The normal human ejaculate contain millions of motile spermatozoa. In this large number of sperms, passage through and into the uterus will be possible only for those tens of thousands of sperm with vigorous progressive motility, morphological normality, and a plasma membrane that is functioning appropriately in response to environmental conditions. So, the filtering process of this female reproductive system for the viable sperm is very much advanced and very much functional, isn't it? So we are going to discuss about that mechanism. Of course, before discussing the topic, you must have some idea about the structure of female reproductive tract. The sperm travel from outside of opening of the female reproductive tract to the fallopian tube through vagina, cervical canal, cervix or cervical canal area, and then contact with the endometrial lining, then take diversion either to the left or to the right fallopian tube depending on from which ovary the egg is released. If it is from right ovary, majority of sperm directed to right fallopian tube, and if it is from left, it will move, majority of them move towards the left fallopian tube. The entrance of the fallopian tube that is nearer to the uterine cavity is called isthmus, and so this region is called isthmus, and the far end of the fallopian tube near to the infundibulum is called ampulla. So isthmus and ampulla. The fallopian tube ends with finger-like structure called fimbriae, and fimbriae accepts the egg from ovary, and the egg is gradually moving to the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. How sperm know the position of the egg and the secret of action will discuss in coming classes. The ejaculated semen contains secretions from accessory glands. Example, the calcium containing prostozoans from the prostate, and a heterogeneous sperm population comprised of normally functioning sperm and sperm of questionable function and dysfunctional sperm. Here it is mentioned the components of semen. So one of the important component is prostozoans. These are a calcium containing compound that is released from prostate. And from here on, we are discussing about a game to win an egg. The millions of sperms are the participants of this game, and the game is set in multiple steps, and those candidates, that is the sperms who skip any one of the steps, he will disqualified from the game. Let's begin the game. Okay, so the first location of the game is occurring inside the vagina, so inside the vaginal environment. So now the ejaculated semens are in the vagina. Okay, and the ejaculated semen contains secretions from accessory glands. We already discussed in the last slide that this point, that is the calcium containing proteostomes from the prostate. One of the compound is the prostostomes. It is released by prostate gland. And prostozoans are membranous vesicles. These are vesicles. Here you can see the prostozoans. Okay, here this is the prostozoans, and this is vesicularized or vesicle shape. Okay, so prostozoans are membranous vesicles secreted by the prostate gland into the seminal fluid, and they possess an unusual lipid composition and a tight and highly ordered structure of their lipoprotein membranes. So it is basically, since it is a vesicle and the membrane is composed of lipid and proteins, but its lipid composition is a little bit unusual from other vesicles. In vaginal environment, what will happen is that this vesicularized formed prostozoans fuse with the sperm cells in the acidic environment of the vagina, thus modifying the composition of the spermatozoan membrane. So this prostozoans is already present in the testis also, isn't it? Uh, but it is activated only in the acidic environment of the female reproductive system. So it is inactive in the male reproductive system. So the prostozoans cannot function on the sperms inside the male reproductive system, but only in the female reproductive system these prostozoans get activated. How they get activated? It is activated because of the acidic environment of the vagina. So once these prostozoans get activated, it modifies the composition of the spermatozoan membrane. Modify the composition of the spermatozoan membrane. How these prostozoans modify the composition? That is the next point. Prostozoans are involved in modulation of cation levels, that is zinc 2 plus, calcium 2 plus in sperm environment, and enhancement of sperm motility by transferring the calcium into the sperm cell. So once the sperm or semen is entered into the vaginal environment of the female reproductive system, the prostozoans get activated and it modifies the spermatozoan membrane in such a way that it can accept or it can influx the calcium ions into the sperm cell. So it changes the calcium permeability of the sperm membrane, plasma membrane. So this is the first step of this game, and the member that influencing the sperm is the prostozoans, and the second location is in cervical area. The sperm migrate from seminal plasma to vaginal environment, then into the cervical mucus. At this point, the sperm membrane is stabilized by sterol-enriched seminal plasma. So, at this point, when the sperm is entered into the cervical mucus, at that time the sperm membrane is stabilized because of the presence of sterol-enriched seminal plasma, and still the vaginal environment is acidic. So both these factors gives an extra stability to this sperm. Okay, but what will happen in cervical mucus area? In the cervix region, what will happen? The sperm plasma membrane are scrubbed by the ultrastructural elements in the cervical mucus. So the sperm gets contact with the cervical boundary or cervical membrane or cervical tissue, isn't it? So it get continuous scrubbing, this continuous scrubbing between the sperm plasma membrane and the cervical mucus change some structures in the sperm plasma membrane that facilitate the removal of adsorbed or connected or linked molecules and sterols from plasma membrane of the sperm. The next action that happens in the cervical mucus is that the leukocytes infiltrate the cervical mucus. The leukocytes of the female body or female blood in the cervical area infiltrate into the cervical mucus coincident with the sperm entry, and the leukocytes produce reactive oxygen molecules. Then the reactive oxygen molecules acting on the sperm in two ways. It acts on the reactive oxygen molecules acting on the functional sperm by promoting the capacitation process of the sperm, but it acts on dysfunctional sperm in a deleterious way. So the reactive oxygen species is good to the functional sperm, but it is dangerous to dysfunctional sperm. So the action on dysfunctional sperm facilitating the removal of poor quality and dysfunctional sperm from the fertilizing sperm population at this area. That means the cervical mucus area. Then the next location is in the uterine environment or uterine area. So lot of sperms are filtered at this region in this vaginal environment and the cervical mucus. The remaining sperms entered into the uterine environment, but in the uterine environment, the uterine sterol sulfatase, that is an enzyme that facilitates the dynamic changes in the sperm plasma membrane in such a way that it facilitates the formation of ordered lipid microdomains and sterol removal. Means the uterine sterol sulfatase removes the sterol from the plasma membrane of the sperm, and it restructured the microdomain of the plasma membrane. Actually, the sterol sulfatase is expressed in estrogen targeted tissues, including the endometrial lining of the female reproductive tract and bones and breast in females. And the membrane microdomains, here you see the term microdomains, isn't it? So the membrane microdomains, often referred to as the lipid rafts. I think you are familiar with lipid rafts, isn't it? So these are referred to as lipid rafts, and they are specific microdomains in cellular membranes that are enriched in cholesterol and sphingolipid containing saturated acyl chains. Here you can see the microdomain A, microdomain B. So lot of microdomains are arranged in the plasma membrane of any cell, and it is simply this is association of certain type of lipids and certain type of receptors for anchoring them together. So consequence of removal of sterols by the action of uterine sterol sulfatase from plasma membrane of sperms are what will be the consequence of this action? Oh, okay. So it increases the permeability to ions such as calcium, that results into the influx of calcium into the sperm, and the same action of the uterine sterol sulfatase on the plasma membrane that facilitate the expression of SABP receptors means and binding of the stimulatory ligands such as sialic acid binding protein. Actually, this sialic acid binding protein, you can see here the SABP, and this SABP is present on the female reproductive tract, and once this uterine sulfatase acts on the plasma membrane of the sperm and removed the sterols and restructured the lipid microdomains, then this the sperm cell express the SABP receptors on the plasma membrane of the sperm plasma membrane, and this receptors binds to the sialic acid binding proteins present on the uterine female reproductive tract. But only the sperms that had experienced the calcium influx inside the vaginal and cervical area of the female reproductive system can respond to the SABP signals in uterine environment. That's why first I explained the rule of this game, that the sperms that skip any of the steps cannot win this game, or they will eliminate from the game, isn't it? So only the sperms that had experienced the calcium influx in the cervical mucus and the vaginal environment can respond to the SABP signals in this uterine environment. The next location is on the oviduct. Upon arrival into the oviduct, Near to the ovulatory follicle, sperms are introduced to an environment diverse in cellular and hormonal composition. So here, new hormones, you can see the presence of progesterone, isn't it? So the sperm get first exposed to the progesterone and such hormones and cellular molecules or specific molecules in the female reproductive tract, especially in the oviductal area with the progression to the ampullary region. So here you can this isthmus region and ampullary region. So with the progression to the ampullary region of the oviduct, sperm detect the scent or that means the chemo attraction of the oocyte through the action of chemo attractant molecules from the egg. So actually the fimbriae accepts the egg from the ovary during the ovulation process, and the ovum that released from the ovary is transported to the ampulla, then to isthmus, and then to this cervical area, then to vagina, and to the outside. That is the process of menstrual cycle, isn't it? So when this fimbria accepts this egg and then transported to the ampulla, at this stage the egg release some chemicals that which is the cues or signals to the sperm that is coming to this towards the egg. So the sperm respond to that signals from the egg and find its way to ampulla. Okay. And the next step of this process is the capacitation. And the location of the capacitation is inside the isthmus area. So here only this capacitation process takes place. The normal human ejaculate contains many tens to the hundreds of millions of motile spermatozoa, I already mentioned, and in this large quantity of sperms, only few sperms are get eligible or selected by the female reproductive tract to in the competition to win the egg. Okay, so the capacitation process is taking place inside this isthmus area. Okay, here this is the isthmus. We are zooming into this area of female reproductive tract. Okay, in this area. So the capacitation takes place inside the isthmus. And newly ejaculated mammalian sperms are immature and cannot fertilize the egg. So they are unable to undergo the acrosome reaction or to sense the cues that will eventually get them to the egg. So the ejaculated mammalian sperms from the fresh sperms from the female male reproductive tract is something inactive in inactive condition. So it is get activated only in the female reproductive tract. That activation process is called the capacitation. So only the capacitated sperms can recognize these cues from the oocyte or the released egg and or respond to the chemotaxis. And only the capacitor sperms can successfully participate in the acrosome reaction as well. So actually, sperm achieves some competence to fertilize with the egg inside the female reproductive tract. So the final maturation of the sperm is taking place inside the female reproductive tract only. So to achieve such competence, the sperm must undergo a suite of sequential physiological changes called capacitation. These changes are accomplished only after the sperm has resided for some time in the female reproductive tract. Actually, there is no clear recognizable marker for the occurrence of capacitation. So there is no solid evidence for the process of capacitation. Not evidence, the visible or easily identifiable markers for the occurrence of capacitation. Although several intracellular, but of course there is some findings that several intracellular changes are occurring inside the female reproductive tract to the sperm. So such changes include the increase in membrane permeability or membrane fluidity of the sperm and the cholesterol efflux from plasma membrane of sperm, then increase in intracellular calcium and CAMP concentration in sperm cell, and the protein tyrosine phosphorylation inside the cytoplasm of the sperm and changes in swimming pattern and chemotactic motility also reported in actually, the molecular process of capacitation can be categorized into two changes, and the lipid changes and the protein changes. Only the capacitor sperm can undergo the acrosomal reaction and proceed to fertilization process. So we are discussing about the first change, that is lipid change. So we are discussing about the changes on the plasma membrane of the sperm during its travel towards the egg in the fallopian tube inside the female reproductive tract. Okay, the ejaculatory seminal plasma contains a lot of cholesterol. So cholesterol is found in high abundance in ejaculatory seminal plasma, and seminal plasma cholesterol is the predominant inhibitor of capacitation. So this cholesterol is the inhibitor of capacitation, but the sperm must undergo the capacitation process. So first of all, the cholesterol must be removed from the sperm, isn't it? So that is the first change in the lipid changes. So the sperm cell membrane configuration is altered by the removal of cholesterol by albumin proteins in the female reproductive tract. So who removed the cholesterol from the sperm? The albumin proteins in the female reproductive tract remove the cholesterol from the membrane of the sperm cell. Here you can see the albumin protein. Here you can see this is the plasma membrane of this sperm. Okay, this is the plasma membrane of the sperm. So outside this area, outer area, this is the outer area, isn't it? So this outer area is the environment in the female reproductive tract environment, isn't it? So, and the albumin which is present in the female reproductive tract removes the cholesterol from the sperm membrane, and the cholesterol efflux from the plasma membrane by the albumin is thought to change the location of its lipid raft. So due to the action of albumin on the plasma membrane of sperm, that is the removal of cholesterol by the albumin, that change the location of lipid rafts on the plasma membrane of sperm. And the lipid raft contain the receptor proteins that bind to the zona pellucida of the egg. So we know that zona pellucida is the one of the layer of the egg, mammalian egg, the place of vitelline envelope of invertebrates. In the case of mammals, this present, the zona pellucida is present, and when the sperm binds to the zona pellucida, the acrosomal reaction takes place. So the proper positioning of the receptor proteins that bind to the zona pellucida of the egg is facilitated by the cholesterol efflux from the plasma membrane of the sperm. And the receptor proteins that bind to zona pellucida, receptor proteins originally located throughout the sperm cell membrane. Before the removal of the cholesterol, that is before the cholesterol efflux, the receptor proteins that bind to zona pellucida is distributed throughout the sperm plasma membrane. So which are the changes that take place as a result of cholesterol efflux from the plasma membrane of the sperm? Actually, before the cholesterol efflux, the receptors that binds to the zona pellucida of the egg are equally distributed, is equally distributed throughout the sperm plasma membrane. But as a result of the cholesterol efflux from the sperm plasma membrane, what will happen to the sperm lipid rafts is that it is reallocating or repositioning these receptors onto the head region of the sperm. So after cholesterol efflux, you can see the specific receptors for the zona pellucida is located at the head region of the sperm, not in other places of the sperm. So this repositioning of these receptors for zona pellucida is taking place as the result of the cholesterol efflux from the plasma membrane of sperm. I think you get the concept. So the lipid rafts are clustered over the anterior sperm head. In the lipid raft, you can see these receptors also. So next, the protein changes. In the last 2-3 slides, we discussed the lipid changes, and next, the protein changes. Particular proteins or carbohydrates on the sperm surface are lost during capacitation process. So we are going to discuss the capacitation process in detail. Okay, I will explain the whole process with these two pictures. Both pictures explaining the same capacitation process, but depth of illustration is vary in both pictures. But with the help of these two pictures, we can easily study the topic. And let's begin. In the last slide, I mentioned that cholesterol removed from the plasma membrane of sperm, isn't it? So as a result of the removal of the sperm, of the cholesterol, that is cholesterol efflux from the plasma membrane, that facilitate the repositioning of the zona pellucida binding receptors to the head region of the sperm, and along with that, some other changes that happens to the sperm that we are going to discuss. Okay, so the removal of the cholesterol from the sperm cell membrane directly activate a channel named Caspar. So here you can see the albumin is removing the cholesterol from the plasma membrane of the sperm, and this removal of the cholesterol from the sperm cell membrane directly activate the channel named Caspar. Caspar channel. You are familiar with the Caspar channel, isn't it? Increase, it is a calcium channel, and it increasing the calcium concentration inside the sperm. So when the Caspar channels gets opened, influx of calcium from the outside, that is female reproductive tract, to the sperm taking place. At the same time, the calcium present on the outside activates a channel on the plasma membrane named sodium HNO3 minus cotransporter. It's named as NBC. Here you can see this NBC. But the mechanism of the activation of NBC cotransporter is unknown. So the activation of this NBC cotransporter allows the influx of bicarbonate ions into the cytoplasm of the sperm. This influx of H ions that alkalinizes the sperm and raising its pH. So the increase in the HCO3 level activates an enzyme named as soluble adenyl cyclase, means SAC, and the SAC produce CAMP from ATP. So SAC converts ATP into CAMP. And this CAMP may activate the sperm sodium hydrogen ion exchanger. So this CAMP activates another exchanger, that is SNHE, that is sodium hydrogen ion exchanger, together with the activation of proton channel. So this CAMP activates another channel named hydrogen ion channel. So CAMP activates two channels, that is SNHE channel, that is sodium hydrogen ion exchanger, and another channel, that is proton channel. As a result of this activation of these two channels, pH rises. pH rises. Okay. Again, this pH rise again activates this Caspar channel. So Caspar channel is activated by two mechanisms. One is by the removal of cholesterol by the albumin, and then it's get further activated by the increase in pH by the action of these two channels. Okay, so the overall calcium increase may influence the glycolysis and axoneme activity, promoting the hyperactivation of motility of the sperm. In the last slide, we found that the removal of cholesterol from the sperm plasma membrane by the albumin molecule of female reproductive tract activates the calcium channels, and as a result of this activation of this calcium channel, that is Caspr, it activates another channels, that is sodium hydrogen channels or proton channels, and again as a result of the increase in pH, that is alkalinization in the cytoplasm of the sperm, that activates again the Caspr channels again, and that the further increase that again increase these calcium concentration inside the plasma, inside the cytoplasm of the sperm. This is another diagrammatic representation of that explaining the capacitation process, and consider this is Caspr channel and the calcium channels that activated, and the influx of calcium takes place, and that increase the concentration inside the cytoplasm, and here and the increase in calcium during capacitation leads to the activation of another protein named calmodulin, that is CAM protein, and calcium binds with this calcium or calmodulin protein and forms calcium calmodulin complex. Okay, and calcium calmodulin complex activates another protein named CAMK2. Here you can see this CAMK2. Okay, and CAMK2 activation is also induced by another molecule, that is S2O2. From where this S2O2 is produced? It is produced during capacitation itself. And this CAMK2 is active now, and CAMK2 activates another protein named adenyl cyclase. You are familiar with adenyl cyclase, isn't it? So the CAMK2 activates adenyl cyclase, and adenyl cyclase activates the production of CAMP, and the elevated level of CAMP in the cytoplasm activates the protein pKa. So what is the function of this pKa? pKa activates another tyrosine kinase named another protein named SRC. Here you can see pKa activates SRC. Okay, and CAMK2 has the capacity of autophosphorylation on threonine residues, which can inhibit or enhance its activation. But all the proteins are regulated by another protein, isn't it? So the CAMK2's autophosphorylation capacity is regulated by calcium calmodulin complex and PP1 protein. So this PP1 protein is inhibited by this SRC protein. So actually the SRC protein is activated by the action of CAMK2, isn't it? How CAMK2 activates adenyl cyclase, and H2O2 is also activates adenyl cyclase, and adenyl cyclase activates CAMP production, and CAMP activates pKa, pKa activates SRC, but the SRC inhibits PPI. So normal active form of PP1 inhibits CAMK2 protein. This emblem, that is this signal, indicates inhibition, and this indicates activation. So here you can see SRC inhibit PP1. PP1, active form of PP1 inhibit CAMK2, isn't it? So once PP1 gets inhibited by SRC, PP1 cannot inhibit CAMK2. So because of the inhibition of PP1, CAMK2 is active now, and CAMK2 can easily activate adenyl cyclase, and the steps can continue. Okay. Next, here comes another protein named PLD, and PLD is activated by pKa and PIP2. But what is the function of PIP2 in this process? Actually, PAP2 is the cofactor of pKa, and pKa is the enzyme that activates PLD. Okay, so PAP2 is the cofactor for its activation of PLD. Next comes another protein named gelsolin. The elevation of PAP2 level and gelsolin phosphorylation by SRC maintain gelsolin in an inactive state. So once CAMK2 is activated, what will happen? Adenyl cyclase will be activated and CAMP production get increased, and pKa is activated by the action of CAMP, and pKa activates SRC, isn't it? So SRC inhibit PP1 and PP1 cannot inhibit CAMK2. That's one way of action of SRC. And the second way of action of SRC is SRC phosphorylates gelsolin. Because of the phosphorylation of SRC, gelsolin is now in inactive form. But what is the function of gelsolin? Gelsolin is a cytoplasmic calcium regulated actin modulating protein. Actually, the active form of gelsolin initiates the F-actin to G-actin conversion. So, the depolymerization of F-actin is promoted by gelsolin. But what happens? But here what happens? The SRC inactivates gelsolin, means inhibits gelsolin by phosphorylating this gelsolin protein. Okay. In inactive form, gelsolin allows the F-actin formation, means the polymerization of actin monomers. And gelsolin, if gelsolin is active, gelsolin can inhibit CAMK2 also. But now gelsolin is in inactive condition, it is inhibited by SRC, so gelsolin cannot inhibit CAMK2 protein. So active CAMK2 and PLD pathway maintain actin in a polymerized state and protect the sperm from undergoing spontaneous acrosomal reaction, and permits the acrosomal reaction in a regulated way. So F-actin formation is essential for acrosomal process formation and also for the regulated acrosomal reaction. All these steps are taking place as part of the capacitation, isn't it? So all this process is taking place inside in the isthmus region. So, but the capacitation is taking place in the ampulla region. Or early acrosomal reaction must be inhibited in this. So how this mechanism is regulated? Means the active gelsolin initiates the F-actin G-actin conversion that protect sperm from early acrosomal reaction. Here you can see prevention of early acrosomal reaction is done with the help of gelsolin. But at this situation, gelsolin must be inhibited because the sperm, next to the sperm has to reach to the ampulla region and proceed to the acrosome reaction, isn't it? So at this stage, after at the end of the capacitation, the gelsolin must be in inactive form. In inactive form, gelsolin promote the G-actin to F-actin conversion, and and F-actin formation is essential for acrosomal process formation also. And this pKa also phosphorylates another proteins with kinase activity. Here you can see the action of pKa, isn't it? pKa activates another proteins named AKAP4, AKAP3, VCP, and CABYR. And the activation of these proteins, that is these kinases, is essential for the sperm capacitation to complete the sperm capacitation event. pKa substrate is subject to regulation by serine threonine phosphatase like PP2A. So the pKa is regulated by PP2A. PP2A is nothing but a phosphatase enzyme or serine threonine phosphatase. So this PP2A proteins is regulated by SRC kinase family protein. And these biochemical changes result into the capacitation of sperm and enable the sperm to bind to and penetrate the zona pellucida of the egg, and that facilitates the acrosomal reaction. As a result of CAMP formation, protein phosphorylation occurs, and once they are phosphorylated, some proteins migrate to the surface of the sperm head. And one of this protein is called isomo. Here you can see the isomo protein. Isomo protein is present on the membrane in the head region of the sperm plasma membrane. This is sperm, blue color is sperm, and this is unfertilized egg. When we zoom into the area, you can picturize as this. So here you can see this isomo protein on the plasma membrane of the sperm, and Juno protein, that is receptor for the isomo, is present on the egg plasma membrane. So the isomo is present on the head region of, look at this area. This is the head region of the sperm, isn't it? So isomo 1 is the protein that is present on the head region of the sperm, but this migration of this isomo protein towards the head region of the sperm is facilitated by this mechanism inside the cytoplasm of the sperm. This is all about capacitation process and the filtering of the sperm inside the female reproductive tract. Hope you understood the topic well. Thank you.